Hi there everybody, and welcome to another video. On today's video I have this BMW e90. This is a 2006 and I'm going to be changing the oil and the oil filter in this car. We need to get the bonnet open, pull that lever there, and also I'm going to check the screen wash fluid, top it up, and the coolant. So once you pull the lever in there, you need to get your hand under here, push the this little thing here, so you can open the bonnet, and we have access to the engine. This 2006 BMW is a petrol 318i saloon. Same applies to the state version or even the 1 Series engine. Of that era. It is the old engine. So what I'm going to start with, it's with the screen wash fluid. Screen wash fluid goes in here. We're going to check that and top it up. So as always, I would recommend using the proper screen wash fluid. So I got some screen wash fluid here. You can buy any from any petrol station or whatever. It doesn't have to be the one that I have there, obviously. You can buy it concentrated or ready mixed, and if it's ready mixed, obviously you can just keep it in the car and have it handy all the time. So I recommend obviously using the correct fluid, because if you use just water and if the temperatures are freezing, that water will freeze inside the tank and you won't get any fluid coming out to clean your windscreen. And also, if that freezes and expands, it can damage your tank. But obviously it depends where you live. We are in England. We have had some freezing days, but not that many days. But that is enough to damage your tank. So I just topped up possibly 2 liters in there. And it's a good idea to keep a regular eye on that. It depends obviously if you drive a lot or not, but if you don't drive a lot, it's going to remain full. And in fact, if you don't use it, then it starts becoming like fermented, and it produces a strong smell. So something also to note there. Make sure you use it. And right, well, that is done. We can move next to check the coolant level and percentage of antifreeze. Coolant goes in this tank, and you do have a little sort of drawing here that shows you what to check for. Inside of this coolant there is a stick, and that stick, if it's sitting below this cover, you can see there is the minimum. And if the little stick comes out, there's a ball there. If it's at that level, then you're at the max. So this stick will be floating up a bit. And obviously if it's in the minimum, maybe you want to top it up. Also, this car has been running a bit, so when you open this, be very careful. If the engine is very hot, be very careful. I've run this car a little bit, but not a lot. So, but we can open it slowly to release the pressure, any pressure. If it was really hot, you really perhaps rather wait a little bit for the engine to cool down. Otherwise, when you open it, I always press the cap down a bit and keep pressing it while I undo it to release pressure. But obviously you want to avoid any dramas, burning yourself, scalding. That would scald you really. You'll need hospital if you burn from that. Anyway, you can see the stick there. So this, it's sort of, if it was there, you'll be at the max. So it's kind of sitting halfway down, but it's not at the minimum. So that would be the minimum if it was level there, and that would be maximum. So it's in between. I'm kind of happy. I'm happy with that level. No dramas there. And I'm going to use this gadget here to check the percentage of antifreeze that is in here. Okay, my little gadget is getting a little bit old, but anyway, there's our antifreeze. It kind of looks a little bit pinkish, maybe you can see the color, but it's nice and clear, and it's showing me about minus 26, 27 there, which means the temperature outside would have to be minus 30 for this coolant to freeze. So if you are in Antarctica, North Pole, South Pole, maybe you will get those temperatures. So you would need obviously stronger antifreeze. But again, in the UK, we haven't really experienced those temperatures. So minus 25, 27, it's fine. I'm happy with that. So we can move on from this. If you found that this is all the way in and there's no coolant in there, then you need to investigate further. You may have a coolant leak somewhere, and that's what you need to look for. It could be coming from the water pump, radiator, anywhere really. So in this case, we're gonna close this now, and that is closed and shut. You wanna match the arrows here. You can see the two arrows, and then this doesn't move anymore. So it doesn't mean that is closed. That is not closed. That is closed. So as I was saying, if you had no coolant, then you have to look for a leak somewhere, or why that coolant is disappearing. It could be even burning. So that would be even more serious problems. But this is why we service the car every year and we check everything. But the coolant and screen wash fluid and obviously oil level, we check those things a bit more periodically through the year to avoid damage. Anyway, now I'm gonna move on to the oil and the oil filter. And on today's episode, I'm actually using this filter, which is a NAPA filter. I didn't think NAPA was making filters for BMWs as well, but they do make their own. Normally I use the Malle OX166-1D, I think it is. But today I'm gonna be using this one. So let's get on with that. To open the oil filter housing, you're gonna need one of these, 86 by 16. It says in this wrench, or this is like a socket, isn't it? It's a big socket. Or it says S40, S80 for that. Very common. If you type that's not fitting for whatever reason, but it should. So we'll have a look at that in a second. Right, this wasn't fitting in because there was this little clip in there that looks like it's broken. I'm not sure where that came from, but it was sitting on the side there, so we'll have to just report it. But then we can open our oil filter housing here. Some of these models have a dipstick and some don't, and this one doesn't have a dipstick that I can see. But we do have obviously an oil measuring gauge inside of the car. So I'm gonna let that rest for a few seconds so it drains in, and we can open this cap as well. We just want to open the cap and let it sit there open. That just allows a little bit of air into the system so the oil drains a little bit faster. There's our oil filter. I'm gonna put it there so it drains a bit more. You can leave it there draining a little bit longer, it doesn't really matter. and afterwards, once you drain your oil, you can take it out. But it's a good idea to undo it obviously all the way before you drain the oil, because the oil in here only goes down when you open the filter, when you take it out. If you leave it tight, the oil that is in there remains there. So anyway, now we can get the car up and drain the oil. So looking at the car from underneath, we have this little cover here we want to open. So if you turn that, that should open. That has a bit of oil in it, so that's why it came out very easily. Sometimes it's a bit difficult to turn that, and you need a big flathead screwdriver. And in there is the bolt we want to open. So I have a 17mm socket here to open that, and I may need my 2 hands for this, but yeah, we'll check. Okay, let's crack that open. Make sure you have an oil pan to catch the oil, and also, again, if the engine's been running a lot, the oil can be very hot. It can also burn you badly. Now we let that drain. So while the oil drains, if you open the kit in your pack, you're gonna find a filter, and you're gonna find an O-ring and another 2 O-rings in a copper washer. So this is the bolt. Just change your old copper washer for the new one, and that is ready. And now we have the filter here, the old filter. You want to pull it out. It can be sometimes a bit hard to pull out, but in this case it just came out which is fine. It depends on the filter that you have, really. This is a Bosch one actually, so that is a Bosch one. Sometimes I use Malay or there is another make also, Hengst, but today we are using the NAPA. So anyway, get these O-rings, old O-rings out. And this one here as well, there is one here. There it is. I'm just going to rinse my filter with some brake cleaner. I meant to say the filter housing here. Okay. Now we can fit our new O-rings. Make sure they go in the correct groove, so do remember where they came out from. That's it. I've got some multi-purpose grease here. I'm just gonna put around this O-ring here. And this one's a little bit. That's it. Get the new filter in there and press it in. So that is ready to go back in. Now we're just waiting for the oil to come out. Okay, now we can fit our sump plug bolt back with a new copper washer. And while you're down here, you can inspect the area. I can see there is an oil leak here because there is oil there. There's oil here. All this is wet. There is oil. If you look in here, there is oil all around. I have checked just now if the oil is coming from the top, because there's usually a vacuum pump at the back and that usually leaks. The rocker cover also leaks, but all of those have been fixed in this car, so there is no leaks coming from above. This leak is coming from the sump gasket, and the sump gasket replacement is quite a big job. So for now I'm gonna have to leave it, but it is a good idea to inspect where your leak might be coming from. Anyway, getting back to what we're doing is put your sump plug bolt back in there, put it in by hand all the way as much as you can, make sure it's not damaging anything, and then we're going to tighten it. I would recommend that between 30 and 35 Newton meters. If you have a torque wrench, use it. If you've never done this before, obviously be careful. You don't want to damage your sump or the bolt. If you damage the bolt, fair enough, you can replace it, but if you damage the sump, then it's a huge job. So just take it easy. Don't over tighten that bolt. There's no need to. The copper washer is very good at creating a seal. So I'm gonna tighten that and then close this little cover and lower the car, and we can put some oil and the filter. One thing I forgot to mention, make sure you rinse the area once you finish doing your job down here. If you've tightened your bolt, because you may see there is oil around there, and if you rinse it, basically you leave it nice and clean as it was, then when you check it again next time, if there is a little bit of wetness or any oil dripping, you will be able to tell if you left it clean. If you left it obviously not clean with oil around it, you won't know if it's leaking or not. So it's a good way of knowing how much you tighten your little bolt there. And now we can close that and lower the car. Right, time to fit our new filter. Get it in there. Again, try to put it in a little bit by hand. That way you know it's going in the right direction, and you're not going to be forcing it with the wrench, basically, because again, you don't want to damage it. Although this one is plastic, if you broke it, I guess you'll have to just buy a new one. But just avoid breaking anything. That's the best way. And also you can lift this cover up a little bit and just check that it's going straight. And now on top of that cover, I can just remove this. On this cover is written 25 Newton meters. So they give you the force that you use to tighten this filter. Again, if you do this every day, you know. If you don't do this every day, you don't know, and you may damage it. So make sure you don't damage it, basically. If you're gonna service your car regularly, buy yourself a torque wrench. It's a good investment, and it will be useful for whatever you do, whatever little jobs you do. Right, now time for some oil. I'm gonna use 5W30. This car takes 4.2 liters. So 5W30, I'm using this Motaquip make. I'm not sure where they make that, but I would recommend maybe using Castrol or Mobile Super 3000. 5W30 A3 B3, and well, 4.2 liters go in this car. I'm just putting the last bits. I already put the all the 4 liters, but you don't need to see me putting in 4 liters there. So I just wanted to show you that oil goes in there. And with that done, we can close this. So the last thing to do here would be to get the car running, and since we don't have a dipstick, we can't really check. The dipstick would normally be on this side, but there isn't one, so we'll have to get the car running, warm it up, and then check the oil amount here in the computer. Let me get this on. So you would normally go to, you have this key here, and if you flick up, you go to oil, and then you press the BC button. But if I press it now, it's gonna say it's calculating, but it needs to wait for the car to warm up. So anyway, now you started the car, there's no warning lamps, there's no oil pressure lights, nothing like that. Car is running smoothly, and then you can go obviously to the engine bay. Check that everything is okay, sounds nice and sweet. And one last thing you could do is check underneath, make sure there's no oil leaking from underneath, anything obvious. I mean, like we were talking about the little sump plug bolt. If you get a leak from there, if you didn't tighten it enough, then you may get a very small leak from there. It's not going to be major, but that's what you want to check next time. So anyway, having said that, I hope the video helps. Don't forget to like and subscribe. I'm going to need to use an OBD computer, by the way, to reset the service menu in the car, so you would need a computer to do that. I will do that in my next video, and I'll show you the computer that I'm using. But for now, if you have any questions, don't forget to ask me anything you need to. So thank you for watching.